What's good, YouTube? Sam Webb back again with another video teaching you how to build a custom Shopify site from scratch. In today's episode, I'll show you how to pass arguments into snippets, and I'll discuss why this is important. Before we get started, if you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more content from me. And with that out of the way, let's get started. So what we got on the screen here is the same section that we have from the last video. And if you remember, what we had was a static section up top, and then we had two dynamic sections which, besides the text, were laid out exactly the same way. What I've done in between that video and this video is I deleted that static section, and I also deleted one of the dynamic sections, so now we just have this one here. And something else I've done in preparation for this video is I've set up two snippets of these kind of 50-50 or half and half image text kind of blocks. And so what you'll see is we've got the first one here and the second one. Besides one being flipped, they look exactly the same. And so I'm going to hop over to the code here, and we're going to hop into index. And so what you'll see is we've got content for index, which is, as we discussed in the last video, that's where all of the dynamic sections will be added in automatically. And then below that, we've got these two includes. So we've got split section, and then we have split section flipped. So if we go back here, we've got split section here, and then we scroll down, we've got split section flipped. And then the code that we've written for those is just a wrapper container, and then these two inner containers that are kind of split content half, and then one half has the image and the second half has the text. And you'll see in the other snippet it's the same, except the text is first this time and the image is second. And what you'll see between these two files is pretty much everything is duplicated code. And one of the things that you'll want to do to save you time in the future is to prevent that kind of duplication. And one way to do that is by passing arguments into snippets. And as an example, so say we wanted to replace this headline here, and we talked about this a little bit at the end of the sections episode, the creating a sections episode, but I'm just going to really quickly cover this. I would have something like this that's called headline, and then out here, and my preferred way of doing this is with the keyword with, and then the curly braces. There are a few other ways you can do it. You actually don't have to use the word with, and there's a way just use comma separated, just a kind of a comma separated way of doing it without the curlies as well. But this is my preferred way. And then we would do headline equals, some headline. And that, if I saved both of these, that would be the way that you would pass in these arguments. But what we're trying to do here is I want to make these fully reusable. So for now, I'm just going to delete this. And we are going to use that in the future. Actually, Control Z that. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to write a comment. And I'm not sure if I've explained this before, but this is the syntax for writing a comment in Liquid. You just have comment and then end comment. And then anything that you write within here does not get sent to the server, or it gets sent to the server but it does not get parsed by the server. It gets skipped over and it doesn't get added to your code. So this is where you can write stuff that's just for people who are reading the code to see. And what I like to do is I like to put a comment that says takes the following arguments, and then I just do image, and a lot of times I like to explain them, but I'm not going to explain them in the, I'm not going to, I write out like a little description. It's like the image that is displayed. But for this, I'm not going to write out a bunch of these because I'm going to know what they are. So I'm also going to want headline, and I'm going to want copy. So basically we're going to replace this image, this text, and this text. And then I'm going to save that. And I'm going to hop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to add these to this first one. Right? And so because what we're going for here is reusability. So let's grab this first. And what I want is something like this, right? But that is going to be one, that's not going to work, and two, even if I do this with filters, I don't think I can. But if I were able to, it would just be confusing to read. So what I'm going to do is out here I'm going to have a variable split content image equals, and then I'm going to paste that in, get rid of that and that, and that will make so now this variable is set to what comes from all this, and here I'm going to say split content image. And really quickly, as a quick aside, this image here is something that I saved in files, and this is the name of it. And then what I've done is I've used file image URL. There's also another one just called image URL, and there's also another one called asset image URL. But for now, I'm using file image URL. And basically what I'm doing is I'm taking this name, and then I'm telling it to grab the file from files with this name and append it with all of the Shopify CDN stuff. And then I'm also telling it to give me a 1000 by 1000 copy of it. It's a pretty large image, and it's not square, but I want it to be square. And then I'm also telling it to crop in the center. And so this is kind of an add-on that you can do. There's a few different ones, but this is an add-on that you can do with filters, where you can pass in the actual filter, and then there are a few different kind of options you can pass to it. And this is one of the options for image URL and file image URL. So I tell it how to crop it, because like I said, this image is actually taller than it is wide, so it's not square originally. And so then I'm also going to grab headline, so like we had a little earlier. Let's just pull this from here. Paste. Let's put that in a string. Paste that. And then the last thing I said we want is copy, right? And so then I'm going to grab, there's a lot of text here. I'm going to grab all this text and pass it into there. And let's just change that to have not, just so that we don't have to deal with single quotes and double quotes. And then I'm going to come in here and replace this with, is it called image? Yep. So replace this with image, like we had, and then headline like we had before. And all of this text, copy. And at this point, this isn't that long, so I'm going to just bump that down to one line. And I'll bring that up too. Hit save on that. And I haven't saved index, so if we watch what happens here. So the first one is now broken, as you can see. There's nothing going on here. And then I'm going to save index. This is where we're passing in all that stuff. And then that reloads, and now everything is back to normal. And really quickly, that's just a thing I like to do. I like to watch something break first when I change it, just so that I know that what my change is actually causing the effect. Because if I would have saved both of these and then looked at it and it refreshed and it looked exactly the same, I don't really know for sure that it's working. And that's just kind of a quick sanity check for me to make sure that something's working. What I'm going to do here before, so now we have this. So we have this next section, right? It's flipped. But before I worry about this flipped stuff, I'm going to come back here. I'm going to do the same here. So I'm going to get rid of this include, or I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm just going to change it to that. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. And we're going to do image, headline, and copy. And then from this one, we're going to grab all those values. Actually, I don't need to do it like that. And instead of grabbing this text, I'm actually going to hop over to ipsum.com. So you saw last time that I went to the Gangster Ipsum website, and here's another Lorem Ipsum site called Hipster Ipsum. And so I don't need 5, but I'll just grab 5 paragraphs, and then I'll take kind of some text from this second one here. And then we'll paste that into copy, and there's probably, yep, that not. Hope that's the only one. Okay, that's the only one. And then last thing, we're going to need the image. So again, let's hop back into here. And I was trying to scroll up, but the image is down here. So we'll grab this text. And then we'll just, for now, we'll just reset the value of a split content image. So we don't have to have a second variable, and then split content image. Save that. And what's going to happen is, if I go back to here, we're going to see this flip to the other side. Right? So now that's working. Now we know that's working properly, right? That switched, so we know it's different, and the text is different. Which, in this scenario, it actually looks pretty decent. Like, you got the images both on the left and the text on the right. It kind of looks like some sort of timeline, maybe, or something that you could use this for. But that's not what we're going to use it for in this case. We want it to be flipped. So now we're going to get into another argument. So what we're going to do is hop back in here, and I'm going to say another argument that it takes is flipped. And this one I'm going to write an explanation for, right? Because the other three make sense, right? You're going to pass an image, pass a headline, pass a copy. Those make sense, right? But flipped, that's not quite obvious as to what it takes. So this one's going to take a Boolean value, and it's going to say dictates if the image is left or right. And here we're going to put optional, right? Because let's say we've already built this split content here, and we already have it included somewhere, and now we've been requested to add another version of it where it's flipped. But we don't want to have to go back and like edit this include everywhere it's included and make sure it has like flipped false, right? So if we don't pass anything in, it's not going to be positive, so it's going to be falsy, and so it will be pretty much the same as false in this scenario. But in this case, we do want to pass it in. So we're going to say, a comma there, flipped, and we're going to call it true. I'm going to save that. So nothing's going to happen. The page is going to reload, but nothing's going to happen. And so what I'm going to do, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I'm going to do this in a really simple way. It's still going to have a little bit of duplication, but at least it's a bit simpler. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, and this is going to give you kind of a visual on two different ways to do kind of control flow. So there's unless and there's if. And unless is basically the exact opposite of if. So for this one, we're going to do unless flipped. So basically, if flipped equals false, end if, or end unless, excuse me, and show that. And then we're going to copy this and paste it down here and just replace that with if, and replace this with if. And I'm going to save this. And what should happen here is we should see the bottom one flip to the other side, right? And it does. So that works. Now I mentioned that we're doing some duplication here, and basically we're duplicating this HTML here, and in this case it's not that big of a deal. But if we had to come in, so if we had to come in and add a class, you know, we'd have to add it here, and we'd have to add it here. So if we want to add a class flipped or image half, right, and then over here image half, I'm going to do a dash instead of an underscore. Image half, or we have to add it in two places, and it's not that big of a deal here. But if we had to do this, you know, across multiple things on the site, it could get kind of hairy. If this file was a lot bigger and we had to do this a bunch of times, you know, it's a lot easier to forget something. So really quickly, wasn't going to be part of this video, but I'm just going to really quickly show you the capture statement and show you a way to bring this down to being no duplication. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to say capture image half, and what this does is it'll take some HTML in here and basically capture it in this variable. And so then in here we can do this, right? Because again, these are exactly the same. There's no difference. So we paste that there, and then what we can do in here is image half. And for this one, I'm going to leave it empty. Again, I like to see things broken, so this should turn out empty first. Right? The second one's, well, not empty, but not working properly. And then I'll add this back in. And now it should be working. So that was just a really quick way of removing some of the duplication. Now if I need to change this class, I just do it here. And I'm not going to mess up by forgetting it somewhere, right? Because I'm only doing it this one time. So that's how you pass arguments into a snippet. So if we hop back in here into index.liquid, my suggestion would be to not include snippets directly into index.liquid unless there's like a very specific case where you need to do that. My suggestion would be to instead create a dynamic section, kind of like what I showed in episode 3, I believe it was, where we took a section and we used it, and we actually used a snippet within that and passed arguments to it. So I would suggest using a section that way, or on this page, instead using a section and then using it that way. So this data here, you're not hard coding it and passing it in as a snippet. You're getting it from the merchant who's typing that into their section settings, and then you can have this flipped checkbox where they can choose whether it's flipped or not, and they could add as many of these to the home page as they want. So that would be my suggestion, and just to make sure that within that you're using a snippet, so that for other pages where you don't have the luxury of dynamic sections, you could still use these snippets. Or if you wanted to actually have something hard coded, you could always use the same snippet, so you don't have to duplicate that HTML that's in there. All you have to do is include the snippet, pass in the data, and then it all works. You've already got the HTML, you've already got the CSS. And really quickly, I'm just going to hop over and show what the CSS is that was set up for that. It was very simple. It says using Flexbox and kind of aligns the items center, gives them a slightly darker than white, so a really light gray background. Uh, puts them both at 50%. Throws a little padding on the left and right of the text, and then does some font size stuff and some margin stuff. So nothing too crazy. No mobile style setup. I'll probably set those up later, but for now, those are the styles for this, which is nothing too crazy. And at that point, or at this point, we don't need this file, so now I can delete this. And now we only have this one, which takes in some arguments to kind of make it two different versions of itself. And with that, that is everything. So what we have back looking at the home page, we've got that. We've got our two sections, and everything's good. So hopefully you liked the video. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning, like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more content from me. And hopefully I see you again. So see you next time. Bye.